It's time for EdTech Mondays, brought to you by MasterCard Foundation and CC Hub.
In a world shaped by inequality and context, how do we decide what works in education and what doesn't? On this episode, we will consider learning frameworks and local realities. Welcome to another episode of EdTech Mondays Nigeria, a platform that facilitates critical conversations on the use of technology for teaching and learning. I am Chinyelu Akpa, your host, and it's great to be here again. In this third episode, we ask a very critical question. How do we define and measure effectiveness of EdTech in Nigeria's education landscape? From global frameworks to classroom observations, what frameworks currently exist? How are they being adapted locally? And are the kinds of data truly reflective of impacts? We will explore common methodologies like randomized control trials, formative assessments, user analytics, and classroom observations, and how they are applied in EdTech and in practice. Joining me to do justice to this conversation are Ebenezer Akinwale, who is a seasoned monitoring and evaluation research and learning specialist, currently serving as a senior impact and learning officer at Teach for Nigeria. He leads the organization's MERL strategy, guiding evidence generation, impact measurement, and learning. With a background in agricultural extension and education, Ebenezer has designed key evaluation frameworks, led strategic impact reporting, and managed large-scale projects, including Teaching at the Right Level, Let Girls Thrive, and TFNX. He's also a leadership coach, master Teaching at the Right Level trainer, an active member of regional and international MERL communities, bringing a strong commitment to equity, data-driven decision-making, and education system changes across Africa. Join me to welcome Ebenezer Akinwale. It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Great. And our second guest is Ibironke Olurotimi, who is a seasoned education leader with deep expertise in instructional design, program management, and digital learning. She currently leads leadership and development at New Globe Nigeria, supporting teacher training and education transformation across over 6,000 schools and state-led programs such as Kwara Learn, Bayelsa Prime, and Jigawa Unite. With a track record that spans capacity building at TEP Learning Academy and policy reform through the MacArthur-funded On Nigeria program, she's passionate about leveraging technology to improve education and employability in Africa. She's a publisher of edusport.com, a platform connecting African youths to global education and career opportunities. Join me to welcome Ibironke Olurotimi. Hello, Ibironke. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So now we jump right into the conversation. Evidence of EdTech for improved learning outcomes. And I know, Ebenezer, this is right up your alley. So what are the common challenges in generating reliable evidence of EdTech in our current education system?
All right. The most, important challenge we have is actually access. For example, we have a large number, like 60% of maybe the learners don't have access to, technology and all. So they are based on paper and pencil, and those informations are not really reliable. There's no access. And another thing is government should be responsible for, centralizing the data. Have data, in central where anybody, probably a tech innovator, wants to check something. You can't start from zero. That's the essence of literature review, according to researchers. Start from somewhere. You want to map what has worked over time. Where's the database? Now, it's not that we should blame government. Like, if you want to do impact analysis of anything, it's actually quite expensive. So government depends on funders, donors, NGOs to do this. And so most of those NGOs do things that favors their own theory of change only. So it's not holistic. So these are the issues. There is no central to map. So they just based whatever they want to do on literature review. And when you look at what is coming from Nigeria, it's not much. That's the key challenge.
I think you've just ripped off the bandage right from the get-go, because you mentioned something very important, that when these donor organizations and the rest who might be funding EdTech initiatives come to, support education systems in the country or wherever they are, they have their own theories of change. So they know what they set out to achieve from the beginning. So the data that they would gather are data sets that are relevant to whatever their theories of change are. So hearing this from you, I feel that there is work that the government needs to go do and say what data is relevant to us. And it might be the, as you said, literature review benchmark that every other person, regardless of whatever programs you're running, you need to incorporate this and every other thing.
Right, the thing is, we actually have some foundations we can work with. For example, there are some curriculum expectations, like made by NERDC. I was reviewing the one from 2014, There are some benchmark expectations for learners from primary 1, primary 2, how many words they should be reading per minute at this thing and all that. So what is just lacking is, having like that central framework where the evidence that will back up this particular foundation they've laid will be for everybody to access. Now, that's where the challenge is. There's something on paper, but there's nothing in reality. I mean, not nothing actually, but there's nothing serious in reality.
What's happening in reality. So a centralized data bank.
Yeah, that's
all
it.
of this. Ibrahim,
Yeah. So just listening to Ebenezer, there are very salient points that he has made, and I totally agree at having a centralized, more like a data repository where you can actually know what is happening in the school, and you don't have to look, because one thing that we found, especially in places where we haven't partnered yet, we find that government has the data, but they have it in different places. So one ministry has the one for pupil enrollment, another ministry has the one for pupil assessment data, and when you ask about teacher performance metrics, it's domiciled in another ministry. So really bringing all of that together in such a way that policymakers can use all of that information to make decisions in the interest of the children, in the interest of the schools, where the action needs to happen. Because really, at the end of the day, all of that data should be informing pedagogical transformation. So it should inform how is teaching practice, how is it improving, how is the teacher improving, how they teach, how they manage their classroom based off of the data that they are getting. How are they using it to really improve learning outcomes is the real question.
I want to ask you both a question, and maybe putting you on the spot. But who do you think should be responsible for this data aggregation? Is it the EdTech organizations? Is it donor, agencies, partners, international organizations? Is it the government? Who should we hold? Does it have to be a synergy? On whose table does this lie? Because we have identified this now as a common problem. We have data for education that have been gotten sometimes even from EdTech tools and products, but they are everywhere. Who is responsible for aggregating all this data?
I would say the government. Yeah, I would say the government, because the government is the biggest spender in education, biggest provider of education. And if education is a right for every child, then the government should ensure that every child has access to this education. And so I would say government. But on the flip side, I would also say the government can't do it alone. So the government has to partner with, organizations, donor organizations, EdTech organizations.
Do they have the expertise to do it?
Yeah, and that's where the technical partnerships comes into play, public-private partnerships come into play, because that's really how we can move this forward. So the government would partner with technical, organizations, the private sector that has the expertise to be able to carry out, this data collection, collect the data that is relevant for learning outcomes or learning gains to happen. And then the government is the owner of the data, really. Yes. But what is happening is that the partnership is helping to facilitate what the government needs to do. So it's more like, the support that you're giving to the government to ensure that what the government needs to deliver on to the people, the government is able to deliver on it. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I quite agree. Like she said, if you look at what numbers are saying, if you look at all the NGOs in Lagos, all their budget is less than 10% of the government budget, actually. And then another thing government needs to actually do, there's something they call the money man, somebody that is regulating, like collecting tax and all of that. We need something like that for data too. If benchmarks are not unified, it will just be data in silos from all those organizations. You get, so like, let's say, we checking literacy. Is it correct word per minute? Is it average rate literacy? Things like that. So this is what government can do. Although the innovators too have their own role to play. For example, somebody cannot say, buy this thing, except you have to prove to me that, this thing works well. So yeah, that's the thing.
So now you've touched the tail of the tiger. Now, when we talk about, you talked about average words read per minute and all of that, do we have any frameworks or standards to which we can hold EdTech innovators to when it comes to, data and how well their solutions or products are supporting learners in the classroom? And then do we have those in Nigeria currently? This standards framework, benchmarks, whatever it is, that we can hold EdTech innovators to?
So what I can say we have is some of the things stipulated by the curriculum that is being manned by NERDC. And, everybody tries to lobby, probably get buy-in of stakeholders and all of that. They use what they have to get the buy-in. And sometimes, it's all over the place. It's not centralized. But there are some expectations that the curriculum states. Because whatever EdTech solution everybody is bringing, even the NGO, even the government, the major impact, like the key thing, is actually learning outcome for learners. So you just see there are some things that have been stipulated by the curriculum. Like, okay, in primary 1, these are things we're expecting for learners to do. Correct word per minute, this is they should be able to reading for meaning, things like that. Even in mathematics, they should be able to do fraction, etc. Those ones are there. I think that is what some of these innovators use to do their own. But the only the thing, if we look at what literature is saying about the solutions that has been, organizations, it's all over the place. Like, it's not really unified. But the good news is that they are tending towards the stipulations made by the curriculum. So
they're tending towards it.
Yeah, some of the stipulations.
They're on the road there.
Right. We need a unifier to get what I mean. Okay. So that's why the unifier. I believe that some of them are just bringing innovations from places that are working. And
that's where I was going to. I just to peg that somewhere. Everyone, can you add something to that?
Yes. Okay. So I want to say that technology in itself is a facilitator. It doesn't take away, in our EdTech solution, it doesn't take away pedagogy, which is at the center, pupils learning and improving in their learning. And so the frameworks that are being used are learning outcomes measurement frameworks that are globally acceptable, but locally contextualized or locally, adapted in a way that assesses exactly what children in Nigeria should be learning. So even though you might have said that, we take this assessment from places that are working, but of course it is locally
in your situation.
Yeah, locally, adapted in such a way that pupils in Nigeria are being assessed for what they should know. For example, a primary 2 pupil is being assessed on what they should know in primary 2 as stipulated by the NERDC and, the objectives of the curriculum. So we're not just tending towards it, right? We are actually on that path, right? Ensuring that we are assessing what children should know at every given time in the Nigerian classroom.
So I like how you have, I want to say exonerated your own organization, but it's really a cause for concern because we are churning out EdTech products by the minute in Nigeria. And A lot of worry people have about is standardization, because you'd hear, oh, my school uses a Turkish curriculum. We use the British curriculum. We use the American curriculum. We use British, American, Turkish, Canadian curriculum. We use the Nigerian curriculum. And then you begin to wonder, what do you use in your solution? You're opening up tools that have boasted that these tools will support every learner. And the examples they are giving out the River Thames, and you're wondering, how relevant is this to a child? And I ask this because I know that in some countries, even in Africa, like in Kenya, for every solution, every EdTech solution that gets into a school has to go through an evaluation and is checked and is said good by the Kenyan Institute of Curriculum Development. So if KICD doesn't pass you, your solution doesn't get access into schools. Do we have the same thing in Nigeria, where if an EdTech solution is to get into a school, it has gone through a bit of evaluation that is checking what they say they can do to how a learner should be learning in Nigeria?
Not yet in the country, like you mentioned for Kenya, there's Educate too in the UK. They are the one that check based on the metrics they have set standard based on provided by, the curriculum and all. And then they certify that, okay, this EdTech solution is acceptable and all that. So we do not really have, like for now, centrally, or let me say not that I know of, or not what literature has reviewed so far. Because in Teach for Nigeria, what we do is we try to check around what is being done locally and try to, we want to have that bank for people to, come and check anything they want to check. But so far, none. And it's actually very important. If you look at how techs are providing, like giving evidences, you see different approaches used to. They are standardized, like she said. You can't take nothing away from that. But the thing is, it has to be, kind of uniform. And there should be one central body. Like they had Educate in UK, like the one you mentioned, Kenya. We need that too in the country. Anyway, maybe when we get to that bridge, we'll cross it, but how it will work. But we need that. And it's going to be helpful, actually.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree that, we need that kind of body in Nigeria that can really help for unification and standardization, because it will really help ensure that organizations have access to the kind of solution that they need, or for the different schools. And I would also want to piggyback to what you mentioned at the beginning about, schools using different types of curriculum and all of the, or different types of EdTech tools. I think that every school would pick the tool that they want based on, the kind of outcomes that they want to see. But if we're looking at how we can serve even the underserved and the under-resourced environment, then we should be thinking of things that are really sustainable, things that can last the test of time, and things that does not exclude any child because that child does not fall in this particular economic status.
I believe that one thing, I don't know if it exists anywhere yet. Yes, it does actually. But one thing we would like to see is maybe a publication of EdTech products, and that this has been, if you want the best solutions for literacy and numeracy, you just have that repository, and that if you go here, so if you're a parent, so if your school is telling you, oh, you have to use NED, this, that, what you have to do is just open somewhere, and you're checking to see if you're not the hello proprietor, proprietress, I'm not interested. So that the users also have some bit of authority and control over what they're exposed to. Because you see that most times when parents, and guardians and even users themselves are giving solutions, you're almost at the mercy of whoever is providing a solution to you. And you just believe they know everything and my life is in your hands, or my learning is in your hands. So I'd say, are there examples of EdTech interventions in Nigeria that have demonstrated measurable impacts and have shown, I can see you smiling already, Birinke, and have shown that learners are moving from one level of competency to another, and they have gathered substantial evidence to make this happen? Let me start with you, Birinke.
Of course. Yes, would be my answer. But just before I forget my train of thought, yes, is the answer.
Okay.
And what we've been able to do is to ensure that we use a measurement framework, like I said, that is globally accepted, but locally relevant.
Yeah.
In a way that pupils can be assessed for what it is that they are learning in the classroom day to day. Beyond that, also, we also have the way we gather evidence. We don't just gather our evidence by performing midline or baseline assessments, but we have a way of ensuring that we have data by the minute. And when I mean by the minute, for example, as I sit here now, there are things that I can check happening in Jigawa State, in a school in a community that is far from the city center. I can tell you how many pupils are in the classroom or a certain classroom, how many teachers arrived in that school that day, what the teachers are teaching currently, what they should be teaching, how much of their lessons that they have taught. So we have been able to use the 360 approach to our advantage in such a way that we know how pupils are performing. And when we combine that with our time-to-time assessments that we do, we are able to put it together and plot a line and say, okay, pupils that were in this classroom last year, they have moved from this level of literacy to this level of literacy. And we also do leveling in such a way that pupils that are in primary 2 that are able to read at this particular competency level or correct words per minute, they are learning what is suitable for their levels.
level.
So they're not just learning generalized stuff because this is what they should be learning, but it is learning that is pegged at the level where they are at.
I mean, I agree with that, because when you review literature, you see some of the work they've done, on real-time data and all that. And when you want to recommend solutions to people based on framework of things that learn, whatever what they are doing is one of the things that
The benchmarks
that stands out in the literature and all. But I mean, to move further, we look at some other innovations that you've seen, some of the Khan Academy. Let's use standard this thing, the way they set their thing, learner analytics and all of those things, the chat box, give feedback and all of those things.
You're going for Khan Academy. In Nigeria, because what we're trying to do in Nigeria, what we're trying to do on EdTech Mondays is to really spotlight people who are building in Nigeria, and because we believe that we cannot outsource our education.
True.
So we need to get people who understand Nigeria's unique contexts and can build around those contexts. So.
Right. Yeah, so we have ULES mirroring that of Khan Academy. Like, it's similar to that, their solution. Yeah, and you mentioned randomized control trial too. They did that too, and they saw some good percentages. Although, some people, we have some questions to ask and all of that. But, I mean, at least it is something that one can build on. So those are things that are working, and I believe that we can build on that, and it will get better.
Yeah, and just to also add to what he meant, he said about ULESing, learner analytics, and the impact that is making on learning outcomes. I just wanted to mention this report from 2023. It's from Michael Kremer. Michael Kremer is a Nobel laureate. He's an economist, and he carried out an independent study of methodology, and he found very amazing results. Not surprising to us, because of course we know that these things work. We've piloted it, we've used it in places around Africa and also some parts of India. And so what he found was that for pupils who were in primary school in that study, they had an additional year of learning gains, meaning that what they would have learned in 3 years, they learned it in 2. And then for those in the early years, it was even more phenomenal. They had a 1.5 years learning gain. What they would have learned in 3.5 years, they learned it in 2. So we know that these solutions work, right? And we understand the Nigerian landscape. We understand the constraints. We understand, the resource constraints and even the capacity constraints that we have. And we build around, all of those constraints.
Great. It has been an amazing conversation. As parting words, Ebenezer, how do you think the government can really support organizations like you who might not use a lot of data, a lot of technology, but are amassing ton of data on how learning is going and supporting you to get on board that technology train? to show that EdTech could support, improved learning outcomes?
All right. I mean, if you look at what the future of work data is saying, technology disruptions here and there in education too, and that's the future. That's EdTech. And like I said the other time that we need like taxman even in. I wanted to say that if they want to build things like that, they can't just call people from anywhere. They have to call people that have been, like organizations like Teach for Nigeria, like our organization. They know, just like the refinery, Dangote, he went to go and pick somebody that knows, I think, is it Shell or where, to come and lead his own refinery too. That's how things like that work. So because one of the challenges we have in Teach for Nigeria actually, of course, is why we are existing, is we are working in with those 60% that don't have access. And then we are doing gradually, little by little, when we get partnership. So, okay, we find a way to move towards tech and all that. So support we just need it. For another thing is government, it's not that they don't do solutions, but I wouldn't know. Maybe because of things they say, like, so they want to back what they say up, they just put funds, maybe start distributing tab to people that have not been onboarded or trained on how to use things like that before.
So you can't just throw technology at a problem.
No,
there has to be a system, there has to be a plan.
Something in place already. And this is what Teach for Nigeria has put in place.
Should have said this thing earlier. But thank you so much, Ebenezer, right. Because I have a lot to say at this attitude of just throwing tabs as in solution. When you think EdTech, you just give them 1 million tabs, and the state says, we are EdTech ready. But Ibirinke, my question to you is, how can big shots like you, who are doing remarkably well in EdTech in Nigeria and getting so much evidence that EdTech can work in even the most rural environment, how can they support these smaller innovators in knowing how to get good data for informed decision making in education?
For those kind of innovators, I think what will be very helpful and valuable for them is for them to interact with the data that we have published, like, our outcomes data. How did we come about these outcomes? Like, what are the steps we took? What's the methodology that we employed? Really integrating themselves acquainting themselves is the word actually, with the data that has already been published on how, pupils have grown from level A to level B to level C, what has been done, what we can attribute to those learning gains. I feel like that is going to give them so in the process where they are doing what they call market research and things like that, these are the things that they should really acquaint themselves with the data, because it gives them the benchmark for where are we even starting, what do we even want to build, like what is working, what is existing that is working. Because again, I know that we're doing phenomenal work, but of course Nigeria is vast, and there might be solutions that are localized within smaller ecosystems, yes, and they need this data to know what exactly works. So it won't be them starting from ground zero, but starting from a place of knowledge and a place of like standing on the shoulders of giants in that sense, just really using our own experience to their advantage.
So people have done the work. EdTech innovators, you cannot move blind when it comes to designing your metrics and the type of data that you collect. If the organizations who have done the work, go do your desk research, go see how they have come about their data, eat, breathe, sleep on this information, and let those data sets be the benchmark with which you now do your own research and gather the information you need to design your own solutions. Thank you so much, Ibirinke. And to you, our listeners, would love to hear from you. If you're a parent with children in school, have you had to onboard your words or your children on any EdTech platforms? What has the experience been? Have you noticed any remarkable changes, improvements in their learning or not? Have their learning become better? Have they improved in any of the areas that you had previous concerns over or not? Would love to hear from you. Has EdTech supported their learning, or has it made it worse? Send us an SMS or a WhatsApp message to any of our numbers, 0703 165 080 9 or 0706 402 0742. You could also join any of our WhatsApp or Telegram communities at EdTech Mondays Nigeria to share your thoughts, share your feedback, and join the continuing conversations that we have on those platforms. And in case you know anyone who missed this episode of the show this month or has missed any of the episodes we've had in the previous week, do not worry, we have it all saved for them. Hurry now to Spotify, EdTech Mondays Nigeria to listen in, or CC Hub Africa to watch us on YouTube. Until I come your way next time, same station, I remain your host, Chinyelu Akpa. Keep using technology to push the frontiers on education. It's bye for now.
It's time for EdTech Mondays, brought to you by MasterCard Foundation and CC Hub.